But when you have a good realtor who is knowledgeable, who is involved, who is holding their hand through the process, the relationship really becomes one of cooperation because we both want what's best for the buyer at the end of the day. We want to do more business together. And that kind of transaction is 100% different than either the realtor I never hear from or the one who wants to control the deal. Welcome to the DFW New Home Podcast, the podcast where a realtor and a builder rep share their insights on the exciting journey of buying and building new construction homes. We know that buying a new home can be daunting, but we're here to make the process more approachable, informative, and enjoyable. In each episode, we'll discuss topics ranging from finding the right builder and location to selecting the right floor plan and finishes. We'll also share tips on navigating the financing process and ensuring that your home is energy efficient. Our goal is to empower you with knowledge and resources to help you make informed decisions about your dream home. Whether you're a first-time homebuyer or an experienced homeowner, the DFW New Home Podcast is the podcast for you. Join us every week for insights, inspiration, and a little bit of fun on your journey to building your dream home.
It's going to be a good one. We're here for episode 2. If you caught us in episode 1 and you came back, we are so thankful that you are back. If you missed episode 1, you may or may not want to go back and listen. I don't know. But I'm Zach. I'm the realtor. I sell a ton of new construction. My partner on the other side, the better half, is Megan. She is the builder rep. She's carrying all of the fun. And today we've got a good one.
Yeah. So today is red flag, green flag. I'm representing the green over here.
Like a relationship thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So building a home is a relationship. This isn't like when you're buying a home that's already built. You're going to close in what, 30, 45 days?
Thereabout, yeah.
Thereabout. If you're building from scratch, I mean, if it's a completed home, maybe it's still that same time frame. But if you're building, it is
6 to 8 months.
6 to 8 months minimum. Back in COVID, it was 15 months sometimes.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh. Let's not go back there.
Oh, yeah. The relationship that you have with the builder rep specifically is a really important relationship. They're your first impression of the company, of the community, and they're going to be the ones who are really driving. They're behind the wheel during this whole experience. So you want to make sure that you are picking someone that you trust, that you like, that is knowledgeable. You want to be in good hands during that experience.
Absolutely. And I would say that the same is true whether you're doing the long-term build or we're buying off of the builder's inventory.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk, red flags, green flags, i.e. things that should make you want to keep going and pursuing that builder, and things that when these things happen, you might want to reconsider your priorities and what you're working with. So Megan, we want to start on the red side, green side. We want to mix them in. Where do you want to go?
Let's start with the red. Let's get into
stuff. Give me, you want to go first? Oh, you give me one and then I'll give you one. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, we'll go back and forth. So let's start with the lowest hanging fruit. And you might think that this is a no-brainer thing. Like, this is your job. How are you not doing this? Right? Do they get up out of their chair when you come in?
Ooh.
Right? That's literally their job, is to get up, to greet you, to introduce themselves, to get to know you, ask questions. Yep. And if when you walk in, they're sitting behind their desk going, hey, come on in, take a look around, let me know if you have questions, and then they get back to their computer. No, ma'am.
Okay, I'm gonna give a caveat to your red flag on that one because I think that's super important.
I think I know what it's gonna be. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So here's my caveat. As a realtor, when I bring clients in, I want you to greet us. Yeah. Get up out of the chair, shake our hands, say hi, introduce yourself, but also give us a little bit of space to just breathe. For me, I spend a lot of time in models and in communities. And so I know what I'm looking at, right? For a lot of my clients, it's the first time I'm bringing them in. So I love it when a builder when the rep comes up, introduces themselves, says, hey, Megan, super glad to meet you. Why don't you guys go take a look around and then let's have a conversation, right? And for me as a realtor, this is kind of my pro tip, is I'm going to play bodyguard. Like, I'm going to step in and say, hey, I let my clients go look around because I want you to kind of get a feel for what you're looking at without my opinion, without the builder's rep opinion. And I'm going to play defense and kind of fill the builder's rep in on, hey, here's what we're looking for. Here's our timeline. Here's our budget. and anything that they need to know to help us move that conversation down the pathway. If you come at me and you're like, "Oh, we're gonna do this," and I'm like, "Chill, bro," or if you don't get up from your desk at all, I'm like, "Come on, man, like
Yeah.
that's a red flag. We're gonna go somewhere else."
That wasn't the caveat that I thought it was going to be, but it's a good one. I
What
thought
do
it
you
was
think it
going to
was
be
gonna be?
for me personally. Like if I am already meeting with somebody, I like to respect their time. And I
Yeah,
like to respect that, like, okay, I'm with them, helping them right now. And I might have to step away just to say hi, introduce myself, and all that, and then let you kind of do your thing, answer any quick questions. But then I want to get back to the people who I'm in front of.
yeah,
Um, and like if I'm right in the middle of explaining a contract, then it's, hey guys, come on in. Sorry, I'm with somebody. Make yourself at home. I'll be with you in a sec if you have any questions. Like
for sure.
I'll do that if I have somebody in front of me and I value their time.
Okay.
What yours was a very good point though.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay. Here's my second red flag. So we're talking about getting up out of your seat.
mhm.
When you go into a builder's office or a model home, and there's a pair, and some builders do this, right? Some builders have like a lead salesperson and an admin. Some builders have co salespeople. Some builders have like three, and they all like piranha, and it's like, don't do that, guys. Don't do that. Like again, get up and greet us and say, hey, but I've watched sales reps fight with each other in front of clients of like, is this my
Oh,
people? Is this your people? Like, that's a no bueno. We're not doing that. That comes
yeah.
off with commission breath. Please don't do that.
Yeah, and those conversations might happen, but something you may or may not know is that most models have cameras.
No.
Uh, and we have a little security monitor up in the corner so we can
Yep.
see when somebody parks. And like my partner and I will kind of yell across to each other when we see a car pull up, like, hey, is it your up or my up? But like
Yep.
our company rules say that the up system should not be visible to the prospects. They should
Yeah.
not know that that's what's happening, for that very reason, that it feels very like,
Salesy.
bleh.
Well,
Yeah.
and I know I've had experiences with so we're talking about this red flag still of like we would meet with a sales rep, and then on their day off, their partner would start calling us and trying to take their business. And
Oh no.
I'm like, no, 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 we're not doing that. Like
Yeah.
we're not playing that game. And I'm like, that's an immediate red flag for me.
If they're a shark. Yeah.
Yeah.
If they're trying to steal somebody else's lead, like,
Yep.
yeah, that's just, to me, that's not good business ethics.
No, we want to do business with good people.
Mhm. Yeah, and back to your point about, like, giving people a second to breathe, and, like, I definitely notice that sometimes when people come in, they're overwhelmed and they're distracted and they're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
look at this model. It's calling my name." I just like they can't focus on what I'm trying to say to them because they
Yep.
want to go in and check everything out. So, when I get that vibe, it's very much like, "Yes, you know what? You're not going to be able to focus on a word I say until you
Yep.
get this out of your system. Go do it."
Well, and model homes are so hard because that I mean, it is that it is a builder trying to show off like
Yeah,
this is everything we can do, and if you can be super overwhelmed by it, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is awesome.
yeah,
And so
sensory.
yeah, you definitely got to have those moments where it's like let's take it in, let's
Mhm.
feel this out, and then let's start asking questions. And that's where a good realtor comes in. Is like if I'm bringing a client in, I know what they're looking for, what their needs are. We've had that conversation so that I can talk to the builder's rep and say, hey, here's kind of what they're thinking, and then we can work together to find a great solution for you.
Mhm. Yep.
So, all right, give me another one. Give me a red flag.
Okay, so we actually talked about this in the first episode, and that is if they tell you that you can get a better deal by not using a realtor.
100%.
So let me give
100%.
let me give you some backstory on that. So most builders do have rules when it comes to realtors.
Yep.
A lot of builders say the realtor has to be there with you on the first visit.
Yep.
That's probably the most stringent application of that rule. I've
Yep.
also seen builders where you at least have to put down on your registration the name of
Hmm.
the realtor that you're working with. Other builders are less strict, and if at any point before you go under contract you say like, oh hey, by the way, I am working with a realtor, this is
Yep.
their name, then they'll make sure that that realtor is also included. But something called procuring clause, which is something that I know you realtors will be familiar with the term, is did that person
Yep.
do the actions required to make this deal happen? Did they send their buyer out to look at this community? That's what a lot of builders are going to look at in terms
Uh-huh.
of, okay, do we actually owe this deal to this realtor? Right.
Yeah. And
Um,
that's an interesting piece too, because procuring cause. So in simple terms, it's like, was the realtor the reason that they bought that they're buying that house, right?
yeah.
And so that's a hard space because there's a yes and no to it, right? Sometimes it's like, oh, they weren't the reason, like they found it on their own, but they want representation to help walk them through the process. And
Mhm.
or it's like, no, they should, because I've had clients where it's like, hey, I showed up and talked to a builder, and then we went and looked at 10 other builders, and then and then like they hired a realtor and we circle back. And it's like, no,
Mhm.
I'm the like you I can be the reason that they're coming back. And so it just depends. But I would say any builder that straight up says, oh yeah, we'll give you a better deal for not having a realtor, you should run far, far away from them.
Yeah. They're
You could
lying, first of all.
oh,
um,
100% they're
Sorry
lying.
to put it in such blunt terms, but
Oh,
yeah,
no, yeah, they're straight up lying.
we brought this up
It's a
before. Realtor commissions get paid out of the builder's marketing budget.
yep,
So most builders do the research. They figure out that a certain percentage of their deals have realtors on them. And when they project out, here's how many homes we want to sell this year. If this percentage of realtors is on those deals, then this is how much money we need to have set aside in our budgets to be able to pay those realtor commissions.
yep,
So it does not come out of the price of the home. So if a salesperson is telling you you can get a better deal by cutting a realtor out, it is because they probably don't want the oversight.
yeah. And to be truthful, not only does it not come out of the price of the home, but it doesn't come out of your, like, concession or incentive money either.
Mm-mm.
And oftentimes, if we're being honest, like Megan and I, you and I both know, builders have what's called back pocket money. And so every builder is going to advertise, hey, this is what our concession is. Hey, we can do this much money, or we can do this much in buy downs. I know that there's usually a little bit more that we can negotiate on, right? So that's where the benefit of having that realtor to come in and say, look, like, I'm not saying we're going to get another 50 grand. That's not going to happen. But like
No.
knowing, hey, can we get a little bit more? Like the realtor, having that realtor that knows that space is super helpful in that. I would say it's also super helpful. And I put this out candidly. Here, I'm going to say this, and I don't want to say it the wrong way. There are some realtors that will advertise, hey, write me in on your contract and I will give you all of my commission. But they're not going to show up with an expectation. They're not going to be involved in that process. You can
Mhm.
find plenty of those. As a realtor, that is not my MO. I'm going to be present. I'm going to work for my money. I'm going to be involved in your transaction. But I also understand, there's a tension of like, sometimes you just need a little bit extra, and we have tapped out what the builder can give. I have been known to help take care of my clients when it is needed, and there's a difference between need and
Yeah.
expectation. Because again, this is my livelihood. This is how I feed my family. This is my career. But I also want people to be able to get into homes, and I've said that in our first episode. At my core, that's what I believe. And if there needs to be an additional credit that makes sense for both of us, it is open for discussion. I'm not going to tell you it's always going to happen, but that is part of the benefit of working with a realtor that understands this space. And then when the builder comes in and says, "Oh yeah, you don't need them," I think you made a great point of like, "Oh, they just don't want the oversight because they think they know better."
Yep. And I will say, candid shop talk behind the scenes here, whether or not there's a realtor on the deal does not affect my commission. It does
Yeah,
not affect the builder's rep commission. So, I feel like sometimes people on my side of the table have a negative viewpoint when it comes to realtors. It's unfortunate,
and
but it's
here's what I
real.
say. It's unfortunate, but I think there's a lot of realtors on my side that have made that the case, right? I mean, again, when you have guys and ladies that aren't knowledgeable, that are more of a nuisance, that try to bully their way through transactions, or that aren't even present, I can see why that becomes a problem. But when you have realtors that truly understand the process and truly want to be helpful, and they're truly helping engage, that's a different conversation, right? It's also different. I think I can say this. It's also different for me when I can put my reputation and my relationship on the line to help make a deal happen, because we've done several deals together, or I've done
Mhm.
several deals with that company, and I have relationships with those sales counselors. And so For somebody, it's like, oh, that's just one sale. It's like, no, but when Zach is part of that, it's, hey, Zach's going to sell 10 or 15 of our homes this year. We know he's good people. We know he's good quality. Like I'm going to leverage my relationship to help
Mhm.
get you a better sitting position.
Yep, and to build on that, like 100%, there are realtors where I literally never meet them, never
Mm,
talk to them. Their name's on the deal, but they're not there at the meetings, they're not there at closing, they're not there if there's a problem, like they're just it's crickets, and then they collect their commission at the end of the day, and I think maybe that's where some of the resentment comes in for
yep,
people on this side of the table because like I said in the previous episode, we're the ones doing all of the admin, all of the contract, all the scheduling. So I can see that. But when you have a good realtor like yourself
yep,
who is knowledgeable, who is involved, who is holding their hand through the process, the relationship really becomes one of cooperation because we both want what's best for the buyer at the end of the day. We want to do more business together. And that kind of transaction is 100% different than either the realtor I never hear from or the one who wants to control the
yeah.
deal, right? The one who's like, no, I'm in charge. I've been doing this for this long, and I know that and they're aggressive and like
Yeah.
confrontational about it
Yep.
instead of coming at it like you're working together.
My advice to my clients is always, guys, you have to remember we're dealing with a human being on the other side of the transaction.
Yep.
They have emotion, and again, we've talked about the emotion thing, but it like we treat people. It's we treat people the way we want to be treated. We let our yes be yes, and we let our no be no. My goal is, hey, I'm always going to be firm, but I'm going to be fair, and I'm going to be gracious, and that's the expectation that I want to set. With my clients when we're talking negotiations, it's like, yeah, I'm not going to go in and be a bully like that.
Nope.
That's if you want somebody that's going to be a bully, you need to work with somebody else because that's not me. But I will be firm and I will
Mhm.
be straightforward and I will be, but I will do it in a gracious and loving and kind way. And here's the pro tip on that one. When you get into the nitty gritty of finding extra and going above and beyond, this most of the time it's not the sales counselor that gets to make that call. It's their
Yep.
manager that makes that call, right? And so I've found that when the sales counselor likes your realtor and likes you and y'all have good rapport and they're
Mhm.
going to their manager and saying, look, this is a deal that we're so close. Can we do this to put it together? That goes leaps and bounds better than when they're like, they walked in my office, they were a jerk, they didn't do anything, like they're asking for this. Like when you have that extra layer of advocacy, it
Yeah.
goes a long way, right?
Yep. I've been on that side of it where, yeah, 100%. If somebody's nasty, I'm not going to go to bat and try and fight for you to get a better deal. Why would I? You're
Yeah, no. You're like, go ahead, walk away. It's fine.
But if like I'm like, you know what? These buyers are so sweet. It's their first home. We're almost there. Is there anything we can do?
Yep.
And like if I'm there to fight for you because I like you and I want to work with you, then yeah, that's definitely gonna work in your favor.
Yeah. Okay. I've got a red flag, and this is an interesting one. So I'm curious about your opinion on this one. And this
Mhm.
is less about a builder sales rep and more about a community as a whole.
Okay.
Red flag for me when you go into a development and there's no competition. So there's only one builder doing the development. I think that's a red flag. What do you think?
Interesting. Yeah, I've actually never worked in a community like that. I've worked for 3 different builders at this
Yeah.
point, and I've never had that. So share that with me. Why that's a red flag for you?
I am a fan of the open market,
Mhm.
and I think competition is healthy. And so when you have a development, and again, it's different because some of these builders are their own developers. But I think when there's not somebody else invited to the party, like competition is better for the consumer. And so
Mhm.
when we can look at, hey, this builder's doing this and this builder's doing this in the same community, like it gives the consumer more options versus when it's just like, oh, this is us, and if you don't like it, you can leave.
Yeah.
So I always think of like, birds of the same feather fly together. And so you kind of look at like, oh, hey, who's getting invited to the party consistently in the
Mhm.
same pools? And that's kind of how you start to see quality. It's like, oh, when you see a community that has Perry and Pacesetter and Highland and David Week, and it's like, oh, and then you see it again. It's like, oh, that's a good deal. Versus when you see some of these communities that are just like one singular builder, it's like, what are y'all doing there, guys? I think, like I said, I think it's a red flag of like if you don't like the competition is healthy, and I'll leave it
Yeah.
at that.
I can see that. I can see that for sure. All right. What
Give
other
me
red
one. Give me another one.
This next one is either a green flag if it's done well or a red flag if they don't
Okay.
know how to answer this question. So, one question that you really should be asking whenever you're talking to a builder is, what is your process like for updates once construction starts?
That's a huge one.
Huge one. It can make such a difference in your overall satisfaction of how the experience was to build.
Yep.
And I get that, yes, in the overall scheme of things, maybe you're going to be living in that home for 5, 10 plus years. And it may seem like, okay, just a few months at the beginning of that is not a big deal one way or the other. But I'm here to tell you that if you have a bad experience during that build, it's going to color the way that you feel about your home.
100%. And that's not, and I will say it's not just the sales counselor at that point. It's the sales counselor, it's the construction manager or construction superintendent, it's the lending team that works with the
Mhm.
builder, it's the warranty company as you get closer to closing. It like there's so many people that are involved in that yeah, it could either be a really great experience or it could be a really terrible
Yep.
experience.
And whenever people who built new construction homes are surveyed after the
Mm,
experience, after the home is closed, the number one thing on the negative surveys that they said this was terrible, there was room for improvement here, this could have been better, communication.
I 100%.
Mhm.
Well,
And there, if they do not have a process in place
yep.
or how often you're being communicated with. What is that communication like? If they're like, like whenever there's something big going on, we'll reach out and tell you like that red
Yeah,
flag.
yeah, red. And here's what's hard because so like if we're talking specifically building, and it's different if you're buying off the inventory, but if you're talking building,
Yeah.
there's going to be weeks that like nothing happens on your home. Like either they're waiting on inspections or they're waiting on lumber or they were rained
Rain
out
straight. Yeah.
or the trades didn't show up or
Yep.
what like and then there's going to be weeks where like everything happens on your home.
Yep.
And then if you or there's here, I think here's the big frustration that people don't understand is builders build in sections, right? So it's usually like, hey, this whole street's being built, and clients will be like, hey, we're going to go out to our house, and we go out there every week. It's like, okay, cool, do whatever, do your thing, and then they'll call me and they'll be like, Zach, like the house next door, they did 40 things on that house this week, and they didn't touch our house, and they're so angry, and I'm like, guys, take a breath. Like it's going to be okay. So even if the update weekly is like, hey, we're waiting on an inspection, even if no update, it still needs to be an update.
Yeah, 100%. Even if it's, hey, I know we said 2 weeks ago that we were waiting on the AC unit to get delivered so that we could keep moving forward. Like, we're still there this week. Like,
Yep.
that is important because it shows integrity. In the absence of a story, people will make something up. So if
Oh
they
yeah.
don't hear from you and they don't know what's going on, then they might start catastrophizing and spiraling. And,
Oh yeah, 100%. And I know for you guys that's hard, right? Because it's you and the construction manager that have to do that, and you still have to like deal with new clients and write contracts, and they're like actually managing trade. So there's a lot going on. So it's again, I try and tell clients like we want those updates, but we also want to give grace because like they have 50 clients to update in 1 week, and they still have all these new things going on, and that's
and if
where again
somebody's
having
out sick or, yeah.
yeah, somebody's out sick or they're at a conference and that's where it's
Mhm.
helpful having like a realtor involved is like, hey, we can help guide through that process, ask questions, give you the updates as well. Like I can go walk your property and be like, oh, hey, here's what's going on in case you didn't make it out here. But yeah, you should hear something, every week, every couple weeks,
Yeah. At a
at
max,
most.
a couple weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, hey, we're moving and we're doing this thing. Also, like you want the builder to communicate, especially if you're going to do your phase inspections, right?
Mhm.
What the last thing you want to do is like, hey, we were going to do a pre-drywall inspection, and then the next thing you hear is like, we've hung drywall and mounted your windows, and you're like, bro, what?
What? When did that
Yeah,
happen?
when did that happen?
I will say I have developed my own process for updates through working for different builders, and I've carried this
Yep,
process on because I think for me it's as involved as is practical.
yep,
It really keeps them up to date, and not just the buyer, but also you, the realtor,
yeah,
or the spouse. Like sometimes, if you're just calling one spouse, they're not they're not always going to communicate it with the other spouse. So, you
Yep.
might always be talking to the husband and the wife's like, I have no idea what's going on.
Yep.
So I like to make the call to the one person that we call every week, but I also send out an email with a
Yep.
summary of that phone call. And I CC the spouse, I CC the realtor, I CC the builder.
Yep.
That way everyone can stay involved and know what's going on. And you can look back and see, okay, here's what they said last week or the week before. And
I
it's able to track.
and I love that. And I'll tell you one of the things one of my other sales reps does is he does a weekly Instagram video. Like so
Oh,
it get so he'll walk his so it's twofold for him. Like he's using it as promotional content, but it's
mhm.
also like he's walking their property and it's getting sent to them
Yeah.
and getting sent to me week. And I love that. It's like super cool. It's just another way to see it and visualize it. And I would say, guys, in that red flag, like, don't be afraid to ask questions. Like,
Oh, yeah.
but be tactful. Like, do not send an email every single day of like, tell me what's going on. Tell me like you're gonna get
There's a
somebody.
list and pictures with red circles of everything that's wrong. And like, yeah,
Yeah,
don't.
because I guarantee you, listen, most of the 90% of the time, if you showed up to your house on a Sunday and you realized, oh, hey, that window's cracked, I guarantee you your builder already knows.
And he
And
already has it on
they're
there.
waiting until they get to the end of the process to fix it.
Yeah.
So they don't have to keep replacing the same cracked window over and over again.
Yep. And that's the thing too, for us in this business, in this industry, we're used to seeing stuff like that. We're used to
Yep.
seeing stuff get installed wrong, stuff get damaged, needing to go
Oh,
back, touch things up. We know that that's just part of the build process, no matter how good the builder is. That is part of the process.
yep.
But if it's your first home that you're building, then you don't know that. You just show up and you see that it's wrong or it's broken or it can be very stressful. So that's a big part of you and I's job is
Yep.
that management of stress.
And okay, I'm going to give you that leads me kind of into my last red flag, and I'm going to call it a baby flag. I'm not going to call it a big flag, but I'm going to call it a baby flag. Okay.
Okay.
Red flag for me is when the job site is disgusting. So,
Mm,
let me preface that. First, it's a construction site. There's going to be trash. There's going to be lumber. There's going to be drywall. There's going to be nails. There's going to be all of those things. But when I walk into a house and there's like 3-day old food and beer cans, like as the builders, you got to be better on top. I get it. It's a work site, but be on
yeah.
top of your trades. Like don't leave nasty stuff. Like I said, it's gonna be gross because it's a construction site. It should not be disgusting. Like, and
Yeah.
that's kind of a baby red
I'm
flag for
laughing
me.
because I've seen a lot of that,
Oh, yeah,
even
I'm
working
sure.
with a big builder, I've seen a lot of it. And yeah, cleanliness equals quality in people's
Yep.
minds. So this is something that is maybe more of a red flag, green flag for the construction manager.
Ooh,
Because
yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, I have gone out there with a trash bag and cleaned up trash before. It's
Yeah,
not part of my job description. It's not something that is part of my regular responsibilities, but I've done
right?
it when I had to do it.
Yeah,
But that's a good indicator of whether or not the on-site building supervisor
is
is
walking their houses.
walking their homes and if they have a high standard of quality for their own job sites. Are they holding their trades to that level of accountability?
For sure. All right, let's green flag this thing. Let's talk about things that should make you give you the warm and fuzzies.
Yes. So, I mean, a lot of the red flags that we already talked about, the green flag is the opposite of
Yep,
the red flag, right? A lot of this is both sides of the same coin. On that note, a red flag might be if they're not getting to know what's important to you, if they're not asking the right
yes.
questions and they're just jumping straight to, yeah, I have an inventory house I want to sell you.
Yeah,
Uh, a green flag is when the builder rep is asking you personal questions about what's important.
yep,
There's no one size fits all house out there. They should be trying to figure out, okay, why are you looking to move?
yep,
What is important to you? What's on the wish list? And I'm still trying to figure out how to do that in a way that doesn't feel invasive because I think people are used to sleazy salespeople. And sometimes when
yeah,
I start trying to do that dig, they get a little like, we just met you. That's a little personal. So I'm still personally working on that.
yeah.
But they should try. They
Oh,
should try.
they should 100% try. And I'm of the belief, like from a builder, from a realtor, and from like dealing with my clients, like I don't want to be Hansel and Gretel. Like, please don't leave me a trail of breadcrumbs to find.
Yes.
Like because it does you a disservice because I
Mhm.
can't give you the best thing possible. If
Yeah.
you only give me the nugget of information, it's like, hey, I want you to find the best home. So
Mhm.
I would say the green flags for me is like, and this is going to sound hard, but when a sales rep understands that they don't have what fits and they're willing to let that person walk away,
Yes.
it's like,
100%.
hey,
Mhm.
we've told you this is kind of what we want. This is our timeline. And it's like, you can just be honest with me and say, hey, guys, look, I don't have it. I can't meet your budget. And like and I'm okay letting you, instead of trying to force a square peg into a round hole. Because it's not for everybody, right?
And I'm a recovering people pleaser. So I, I hate that when someone comes in and I don't have something that works for them. And I'm like, oh, I wish I could help you. I really want to help you, but I just don't have anything in that price point or that time frame. And I might like float it like, I do have this. Is that something you think might work? And if they
Yeah.
say no, then it's like, okay, I'm sorry then I just don't have it, but I wish you the best of luck. And if anything changes, let me know.
Yeah,
Like
for
I'm
sure.
not I'm not going to try and force something that is not in their best interest and is not really going to fit their needs.
Yeah, and I would say same line of that, like, green flag, you know, when a builder's sales rep understands that we're probably not buying the first time we come into the community.
Mm-hmm.
There's an exploration phase, and there's a lot that goes into that,
Hmm.
especially, when you have people, that either it's their first time home buying, or like for me, I have a lot of out of state people, and it's like I'm
Yeah,
not just trying to sell them on the community. It's like I got to sell them on the schools, and there's so many things that go on, and like it becomes like analysis paralysis. And so when the sales reps understand, like, hey, it's okay that we don't make a decision today. I
yeah,
understand the tension of like, hey, I've had 3 people look at this house. I want you to be honest and tell me that, but
yeah.
don't be like, "Oh, like, you're gonna lose the like, we're okay if we lose it. Like, it's okay."
And
Um,
I feel like there's a difference between closing and being pushy. Um,
100%.
if you have done your job well and you have found them a home that it checks the boxes and they're excited about it and they love it, then the natural conclusion of that should be, okay, well, is this the
Yeah.
one? Do we want to move forward on it? So don't
Yep.
confuse if the salesperson tries to close you on the first visit, but they're not pressuring you. They're not like, well,
Absolutely.
this deal's going to end today. If you don't get it now, then someone else is gonna, like that's completely different
Yep.
from just like, okay, well, is it the one? And if not, that they don't keep pushing you on it. If you
Yeah.
say, no, you know what, we really need to think about it. And they go, well, what is there to think about?
Yeah.
That's a red flag.
Yeah, that's a big red flag. I love it when we finish a conversation in a community and it's like, okay, if you have questions, you reach out to your realtor, reach out to me, we're here for you.
Mhm.
And then the sales rep knows their community. Like, you should know what your HOA is. You should know what your tax rates are. You should
Yeah.
know what your school district is like. Like, I know it when I bring a person in, but you should be able to tell me about what you love. Tell me about you work in that community. Tell me where the favorite taco shop is, right? And then green flag of all green flags is when builders have phenomenal lending partners that can get things done in a timely manner and give people answers without being like, oh, you got to fill out an application. Oh, you got to fill out an application. Well, we don't want to fill out the application yet. We don't want to run our credit. We're not sure, but we just
Yeah.
want to get a ballpark idea based on, like, when builders lenders can do that, that is the biggest green flag for me.
Yeah. 100%. And when you have good lenders, it makes the process so much more smooth. I can't tell
100%.
you how many times I've had someone say, you know what, no, we just want to go with an outside lender because we found they had a cheaper rate or whatever. And then last minute, couple days
Yep.
before closing, there's issues. We're having to push closing. There's money that they're having to come up with that they didn't know about because the lender's
Yep.
not used to working in new construction. Like it just tends to make the process so much more
And
smooth and headache free when you have a good lender.
And I will say that that's kind of a gray area, right? Because any builder that's like exclusively, no, you can only use our lender, that's a red flag. But
Yeah.
if they're willing to let you use your outside lender, it's a tension point for me because I want to use a good lender. And
Mhm.
most of the time, when you look at quality new construction, the lender is representative of the quality of the builder. And you get great incentives. The other key piece to that is when everybody does their job, it means you get your keys quicker. Like, that's really the best
Yeah.
part of that is,
Yeah.
sticking with a preferred lender, preferred title company, gets you into that house a whole lot quicker than bringing in all these outside people.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
I
And yeah, that is true. Like it is illegal for a builder to require that they
it
use
is.
you use their lender. So that's something you should know. They can't force you to.
Yeah.
We're always going to suggest it, promote it, incentivize it. We do want you to use the lender. And by the way, I don't get extra money if you use the lender.
Me
That's
neither.
not, yeah, there's no financial incentive there. It's because we truly believe that it's going to make your experience a better experience. So that is a red flag if they're telling you like, no, you have to use our lender.
Yeah.
It's no, if you want these great incentives, then yes, those incentives are tied to using the lender. But if you want to use your own, you can.
And pro tip, if you use your own, you can still get some of those incentives. It varies builder to builder and community to community, but they'll still give you some of it. If worst case scenario, you have to use your own lender, just don't let it be one of those big fly by night online ones.
Right.
Please, 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 please don't
Or a
do
big
that.
bank.
Yeah, big bang. Yeah, we're not doing that because it is not going to end well for anybody. Okay, I think I'll give you one more green flag. I would say green flag for me is when a model, and I was talking about this earlier about the like the wow factor, when a model is not overly upgraded.
Yeah.
It is a green flag. Like I want you to showcase what you can do, but what I don't want is be like, oh, that's an upgrade, that's an upgrade, that's an upgrade, and it's like, oh yeah, well the base price on this house is 400, but to get everything in here, it's going to be 600, or that's an exaggeration, right? So
Yeah.
when builders find the balance of like these are our standard features, and they accent those well, and then they mix in, hey, we can do this fireplace, we can upgrade this kitchen, and it's not an arm and a leg. So like finding the balance in that in a model home is a green flag for me.
Yeah. I think it should be on the higher end of average upgrades. Like
Mm-hmm.
you shouldn't be like if your average buyer is putting in, 20, 30,000 in upgrades,
Yep.
then maybe you see the model has 40,000 in upgrades, but it should
Yep.
not be 100, 200,000 over what most people are
I
spending.
always tell people my rule of thumb is 12 to 15% of base price is what you should budget to spend in structural and design upgrades. Because if you go too far over that, you're going to be too high to appraise for the neighborhood. If you
Yeah.
go too far underneath that, you're going to be the cheapest, and you don't want to be the cheapest. So 12 to 15% is usually what I tell people. Like that's what we should spend, and you can get a lot of things done in that margin.
And it does vary from builder to builder. Some
Yep.
builders have more of a structure where it's like everything's included. You don't really get to make a lot of your own selections. That's one way of doing things. And if you're the type of person that gets really overwhelmed by a lot of decision and a lot of
Yep.
choice, maybe something like that's a better route for you. Or an inventory home for a builder that allows more choice, like Pacesetter does.
Yeah.
The other route is where, like, yes, Pacesetter has a model where you can pick your lot, you can pick your elevation, your structural options, your design. Like, if you want white brick with dark trim, pick white brick with dark trim. Whatever you have in mind, you can do that with us. But then you're going to be spending more in upgrades
For sure. And
otherwise.
I will say I think y'all do a good job of hitting that middle ground really well. You're not a full design builder to where you can pick everything individually, but
Yeah.
you're not a package where it's like, hey, you get this one package and this selects
No
everything
changes.
and no changes. And then you're also not like a base level where it's like everything in the community is exactly the same always all the time. So I think there's a good middle ground there. And I think,
Yeah.
like, again, green flag is when a builder recognizes that, and you as a buyer, that what you kind of get the expectation of what you want going in. Like, do you want to do full design? Do you want them to pick it for you? Do you want to be somewhere in the middle? Like, that kind of influences the direction we go and who we talk to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I will say Pacesetter does have some communities where you go to the design center and you can pick
Yeah.
anything out. Those are going to be the executive communities. You're generally going to see pricing in the 600s, 700s.
Yep.
Our Craftsman series, which is everything from the high twos up to
Mid
mid
five.
fives, is going to be where you get to pick your design. They're on site at the model home. There's samples to pick from, and you get to make those changes.
Yeah. And that's a cool, it's a cool middle ground, right? Especially as if you're thinking as a first time home buyer, being in that space of like, oh, we get to pick, this house feels like ours. And it's really cool to see it all come together.
Definitely. I enjoyed it building my own home for sure.
I did too. It was a blast. I will say now that I've done, several, builds and several new constructions. Every time I go to the design center, like I have notes of like, oh, we're doing that in our house next. And oh, we're not doing that. It's like those design meetings, like they are some of the most fulfilling and equally overwhelming at the same time. Because
Totally.
like when you do full design, it's like you're gonna make 200 or 300 decisions in the course of 4 hours, and the
Yeah,
decision fatigue is very real. Like
for
it's
real.
very
Yeah.
real. And so green flag is when sales reps and designers are cognizant and can help walk you through that and
Mhm.
not overspend your budget. Like, please
Yeah.
don't try and talk us into, hey, we told you our budget was 400. Don't try and talk me into the $500,000 house.
Yeah. Yeah. You need to be
And,
cognizant of are we trying to stick to a budget? Well, then maybe we want to stick with these options instead. And yeah,
and
that's a
don't tell me to date the rate if I can't afford to date the rate.
right. Yes. I mean, I know people have like a love it or hate it with that phrase.
Yep.
That's what date the rate and marry
Marry the house and date the
the
rate.
house.
Here's my thing with that. Like, sure, yes, yeah, take the date, take the rate on a date. But if you can't afford a steak dinner, you should be going to the, like, don't take the rate out to a steak dinner.
Yeah.
Like, take
With
it
all
on the
these
date that you can afford.
yes, these 2-1 buy downs are great.
I love them.
They allow you to save hundreds of dollars a month the first year or two. But the thing I love about this that is keeping us from another 2008 is you still have to qualify for
At
the
the
full
highest rate.
and you still have to be willing and comfortable to pay that highest rate.
Yep.
So you definitely want to make sure that it's not rose-colored glasses. Best case scenario, you want to know that, like, okay, if I'm locked in at this highest rate, years 3 through 30, I'm good with that.
And the 2-1 buy down, I'll be honest, is not for everybody. It
Mhm.
fits for some people, but for some, it doesn't make the most sense. And that's what I love when a builder has, like, when they are flexible in their incentive,
Yeah.
because what I want the lender to do is I want the lender to give my clients, hey, here's the money we have on the table, and here's 3 options, and
Mhm.
you pick the one that makes the most sense. Because for some people, the permanent buy down makes more sense. For some people, and it's a higher rate, or some people, like, you have options. But yeah, the 2-1 buy down is a great potential, but you have to understand, like you said, you're going to pay that higher rate, and you're
Yeah.
gambling that you can refinance so you just got to understand those things.
Yeah, and that's boils back down to having a good loan officer who's not just a loan officer, but a loan strategist and who
Yep.
understands your goals and how to get you there.
Yep. Like I said, quality attracts quality. And when you find good builders that check all of these different boxes, you will usually find a good experience from the sales rep to the construction manager to the lender to their title company. That's a whole other conversation. Like, there's usually, like I said, quality breeds quality in all of those spaces.
Yeah. And it certainly makes my job easier to work
For
with
sure.
great professionals.
For sure. As we wrap this up again, I would just reiterate, hey, remember, we're dealing with the human beings on the other side of this transaction.
Mhm.
We you want to ask questions. You want to get the best deal possible. I understand that. We want to be gracious. We want to be kind, and we want this to be a good experience for you. I guarantee you, it's not if, it's when something goes wrong. And when something goes wrong, our question is always, what are we doing to make it right? And when you work with good builders, you'll often find that they are going above and beyond to make those kinds of things right when things go wrong.
Absolutely. Well said. So,
So,
Zach, what is our next episode going to be about?
our next episode, I got to look at the show notes. You can put me on the spot to take a look, and I mean, it can be about whatever you want it
Well,
to be
what's
about.
coming? Give them a little sneak peek so they know
Okay,
if
next episode. I think next episode we need to talk about so in our show notes, I have, let's see, how long it takes to actually build a home. So I think
Ooh,
it'll be a good conversation around the difference between building and buying off a builder's inventory. And here's the real question I think we need to answer is, if a home is on inventory, does that make it a bad home?
ooh, yeah. I think we have to let them wait to find out on the next episode.
So I think so. So guys, thanks for hanging out with us. We will put all of our socials. Find us on Instagram. Find us on YouTube. Leave us a comment. All the things. We thank you for hanging out with us. Hopefully this is helpful. And if it's not, just keep scrolling. But if it is, we're gonna keep doing this because we're having a good time. So
Yeah.
we'll see y'all in our next podcast, or hear us in our next podcast. We'll talk soon. Bye, guys.
Bye.